Hello and welcome to Steve and Dave's Real Questions from Fictional Listeners. Um, this will be our third session. It's the first one where we're not together, which was kind of the original concept behind this series. But we've received so many interesting fictional questions in the last couple weeks, we thought we'd just go ahead and do it.
Absolutely. So from the Steve and Dave's mailbox, Ann Allman writes, Dear Steve and Dave, considering the years 1955 to 1985, what do you think was the most important television show for popular music in the United States? Some interesting
Okay, so
possibilities.
not the most important music show.
That's right. I think that's, I mean, she didn't say that. I think we could broaden it. So,
I'm going to go with Ed Sullivan then. I
well,
think he did. I think he did wonders for popular music, and you just have to think about the Beatles. That alone could almost
well, I
justify.
don't. I think that's well, sure. I think that's absolutely right. I think you do have some choices here beyond Ed Sullivan. You had those two shows that oftentimes were on the weekends, Soul Train and American Bandstand, which ran for forever. Um, they both they both featured dancing and lots of things, but they
And I
did.
think if the question had been the music show, I think I would have gone with Soul Train.
Yeah, I'm gonna. For me, I'm gonna go with American Bandstand. As cheesy and as canned as it was, just about everybody appeared on Bandstand. Lip syncing or whatever, and it was a showcase venue for lots of acts over literally many decades. And yeah, it's not exactly Ed Sullivan. I'll grant you that.
But if you're asking about the coolest host, I think it's Soul Train without that. It's just hands down.
Oh my God, Don Cornelius, who
He was
deservedly
so
entered.
smooth.
He was so smooth. Deservedly entered the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. Although Ed Sullivan was okay. Yeah. For those of you interested in Ed Sullivan, we encourage you to take a look at our behind the curtain special from a couple years ago because it's a fascinating figure and a really important show. No question about that. That's a good answer, Dave. That's really okay. So, Cameron Blankenship asks Steve and Dave, you both are into politics. Well, who do you think was the coolest American president? And I guess coolest, I mean, I don't know. We'll sort of just let that linger a bit for a minute. But
Well,
ah,
I wonder if we could maybe separate this into the idea of classic cool like
uh-huh.
the cool kid at
Oh,
school,
okay. Yeah, yeah. Classic cool. I know what you mean.
and cool in terms of just more in terms of just a greatness, you know, just cool maybe in that sense.
Okay. All right. Well, how about let's go with classic cool kid.
Barack Obama.
Really?
Oh, he's just so smooth. He's smooth and he's funny and it's just yeah.
He didn't even hesitate. I think for me, well, it's Kennedy's John Kennedy, who was just so suave. He had that it,
Oh
and
well,
this he had the it, whatever that is.
yeah, no question. I mean, Camelot. I mean, just
His,
it's true.
it's yeah. In his, if you look at the recordings of his press conferences, it's just like a tour de force of cool. He just had the press eaten out of his hand. He was really smooth. Let's
Well, okay, and I think was he directly influenced and inspired the two cool kids uh, that came 50 years later
the two
with
cool kids.
Clinton,
Oh,
Clinton,
yeah, yeah,
Clinton and
yeah.
Obama. I mean, they were just cool presidents.
They were cool. Yes, they were cool. Yeah, they were cool.
I mean, there's
Some
any
of the
number of other things you can say about those guys, but
yeah, they had
they were
yeah,
undeniably cool.
and they clearly, you're right. I mean, they clearly were operating from a kind of JFK playbook in
Yeah.
lots of ways. Yeah, yeah. All right. So, what about this notion of kind of, I guess, kind of a greatness that you alluded to a second ago?
Well,
That's I,
why don't you go first on that one?
so the question that you're reposing is sort of the greatest American president.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Oh, it's Franklin Roosevelt. I mean, it's to me, it's just undeniable. I mean, what American leader took the country through more, guided the country through more travail than Roosevelt? I mean, you can
Abraham Lincoln.
argue. Mm,
Civil War. I mean, that was
mm,
a, that that
okay,
was
well,
that
I'm
was a
not here.
that was an
Okay,
existential crisis. I mean, is America going to survive as a nation?
how about the Depression?
Well, depressions come and go, and I mean they do. Your country,
You were
name a country that ever went belly up because of depression.
Germany,
Think
damn
about
near. Okay, fair enough. All right, go belly up. Okay, well, all right, existential. All right, it's hard to argue against. Yeah, who had it worse, Lincoln or
but
Roosevelt? Okay, but I hear you.
Roosevelt,
But
yeah, Roosevelt is stellar. He's
oh, there we go. Yeah,
yeah, got to be.
but so
Well,
yeah,
he's
for me, it's
in my top five. Um,
your top
Clearly.
five.
Well, you've got people like George Washington, father of the country, who
Okay.
was an amazing guy. He's just amazing. You have people like well, in a discussion that we had just previously, you mentioned Teddy Roosevelt, who was
Yeah, Teddy
badass.
Roosevelt's he's a
Al-
badass. A wee
almost gets
bit,
back to the classic cool
a
in
little bit,
his
almost to the classic cool. Roosevelt's a wee bit reckless. Teddy Roosevelt, just a wee bit reckless,
it was not right about everything, but
but
he was right
ambitious.
about a lot of things.
And I do,
Um,
yeah. See, and he did combine that vision with again a kind of sense of style and
yeah,
panache and
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
you have to mention Lincoln, top
Well,
five.
I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, hard to argue. But I'm glad to hear that
So,
FDR is in your top five. So
well,
who's your so
I
who's
think
at the
I think the competition is just stiff for the best president,
well,
just
I well,
as
what
it's
this
stiff for well, no, I was going to say for the worst president, but I think it's pretty clear who that was.
all right. So just so we're clear here, you're the top of your list in terms of the greatest American presidents is Lincoln. Oh, you're not. Oh, that's funny. You're hedging.
I think it's a tough call. I, I think that I think that there's an argument. I think it's easy to make an argument for FDR.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good. And I think Cameron, that both Dave and I, in terms of sort of kind of a whatever, a kind of stealth kind of cool, we both maybe give Nixon a well, no,
Oh well,
lots of things.
let's talk about an almost.
Well, that's a whole right.
Then we have to talk about Johnson too.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, what could have been or what almost was. Yeah, right.
In fact, if we're talking about best presidents, I think Johnson without Vietnam would have at least without Vietnam would have overtaken Kennedy.
I think so too. Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, no, without Vietnam, that's a big mulligan, but or would be, but yeah, I mean, he was definitely onto something that was unprecedented. Very much, I
The
think,
Great
right. And
Society,
yeah,
wow.
it's I agree. Yeah, and it's sort of in the FDR vein for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So
Boy, almost. That's a good question. That's a good question, Cam. From Rhonda Winslow, Stephen Dave, if you could win an Emmy or a Grammy or an Oscar or a Tony, which one would you want to claim and why? Hmm. I, yeah, I have an immediate answer, but if I think about this long enough, I can talk myself out of it.
Well, let's hear your immediate
My
answer.
immediate answer, I think, would be the Oscar, and I think maybe it's because I'm old, but for me, there's a certain kind of immortal status that comes with the Oscar and Oscar winners that just isn't there with Emmys and Tonys. Um, and the Grammys, candidly, I think the Grammys are so diffuse. There's so many Grammys, but so I think Oscar. I think Oscar. If I could have one in my on my shelf, I think it would be an Oscar.
Yeah, I think for me, Emmy is maybe undeservedly lightweight in my thinking, but
I have that too a little bit.
and Tony is a bit niche. You look at Tony winners and it's an incredible list, an incredible list. But um,
It, that's very true. It's I think it's rare to find a Tony winner that you sort of wonder about. I mean, it's like, oh, that. Whereas, there are plenty of people who have claimed an Oscar or a Grammy who just, you just kind of got lightning in a bottle. Tony is,
Ernest Borgnine,
oh,
Oscar.
that's harsh.
Uh,
Well, okay,
the man was not a great actor. He just wasn't. But
but he got the Oscar. But he got the Oscar for, is that Marty? That's what he got
Marty,
it
yeah,
for. I think he had a. I mean, it was his. I mean, it's a fine role, but yeah, I
yes,
hear
it
you.
is. It is.
Uh,
Um,
wow, taking a shot at Ernie Borgnine.
I was just off the top of my head talk about people who's say,
Well, I
oh,
hear you though. No,
Ernest
yeah.
Borgnine had an Oscar. Oh, okay, interesting.
Well, that argue, but I think we both would lean in the Oscar category, all things being equal.
And maybe it's just because I can't imagine myself being able to make the sort of music that would earn a Grammy.
Well, but the thing about the Grammy, yeah, I can't either. But they have the spoken word Grammy. They have like the historical, the liner notes and stuff. There are different ways of.
Not
That's why.
interested. Not interested in that.
You
No,
want to performance only.
yeah, I want some kick-ass rock and roll if I'm going to
Uh,
win.
Fair enough. All right.
But here's the thing. For the Oscar, I want kind of a yeah, I want a package thing. I want it for the movie that I wrote, directed, and did the lead in.
Of course you do. Do you want to be nominated for multiple categories as well?
Yes, yes, yes.
Of course you do. Ladies and gentlemen, a little peek behind the curtain there. That's good. It's a good question though. Okay. Another question from Andy Morris, and Morris writes, Steve and Dave, if you could have joined a cast on a sitcom, I guess sort of classic era of TV doesn't say that there. Which cast would you have joined? And I'm going to just put in parentheses sort of as yourself. So you sort of walk in and you're part of that cast.
Wow.
Yeah.
So many phenomenal ensembles
Yeah.
in the history.
It's really
Just
it's re-
phenomenal. I
it's
mean,
really a good one. It's really a good question. Yes, just a ton of,
and
but it is.
do we count things like MASH as a sitcom? Is MASH a
Uh,
sitcom?
let's call it a sitcom. I mean, I know that was a dramedy or whatever. But I guess I would here. We could toss it. It's it is the kind of question that when you would watch something, you would sort of wonder what that. I mean, you can sort of imagine yourself. I have to say real quickly here. I know you're thinking about it. That I oftentimes had that thought when I would watch Cheers. That would be like kind of a recurring kind of extra. There had some people who used to sit at the bar and have like
Yeah,
a line or two. I
yeah,
always thought that looks like a lot of fun.
yeah.
But I'll just throw out my answer real quick. I think for me, it's always been and always will be the Partridge Family. That for me, whether I was young or even when I got older, the idea of sort of that's, I don't know, that I would just look like that would be a lot of fun to be a part of that. And I always wanted that.
Well, David Cassidy was my uh
Yeah.
he was the epitome of cool and sort of
Me too. Agreed.
guy you'd want to hang out with, at least as an 11-year-old kid. uh,
Yes,
the guy I
I
wanted to hang out
couldn't
with
agree
and
more.
maybe to
Couldn't agree more.
be if I could.
Yeah,
And seeing Susan Day every day
yeah.
would not have
There,
sucked.
yeah, there, and it
And
looked
Shirley
like it.
Jones, man, oh God, Shirley
Easy,
Jones.
no, easy. But but it looked like it did look like they were having fun. It just looked like I don't know, and being in a band, family band, get on the bus, get that dog. I don't know. It just to me, it just um that looked like
You get
fun.
to hang out with Ruben.
Oh, Ruben, the wry wit of Ruben Kincaid.
Very, very right. Uh, I think just yeah.
So what do you think?
Well, the show that I had that sort of impression of, just like, oh, they look like they're just having a blast, and every one of them is likable and really the ensemble from Drew Carey, the Drew Carey show, I
Oh,
think.
that's an interesting choice. Come a little out of the box. Yes, it looked like that show, like they were having a blast making it. Like never a dull moment. Just enjoyed
Yeah,
each other. So just barely scripted sometimes. It was yeah.
yeah.
Just
But
interesting choice.
but there's yeah, but there's a dozen other shows where yeah, I think it would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah, agreed. Well, thank you, Andy, for the interesting question. Last question for this episode comes from Francis Gordley, and it's I think a little more sober in tone. And so, from the 20th century, that's what I. So we'll just work with the 20th century. And Francis writes, Stephen Dave, um, what year would you like to step back into? And we'll just work from the 20th century. And we
Yeah,
both.
my we're both history buffs, but I'm not enough to be able to say, okay, in the history of mankind, it's this year.
No, I understand, but
Um, but in the 20th century,
20th century.
1967,
Ooh, 67.
Summer of Love.
That's a yeah, Summer of Love.
Uh,
That's a sweet spot for the 60s.
Bobby Kennedy's campaigning.
Yeah, it hasn't gone to hell yet. I
That's
mean,
not,
Vietnam, but
things have
it's
not gone to hell yet. 1968 was the year that everything just kind of crashed.
that would be, I mean, to me that would be fascinating, but it would be overwhelming. There's no way that you couldn't get swept up in that, right? It really was like just one horrible thing after the next. And everything crashed in 68, no question. But 67, there still was a sense of, it was a bit naive, but it was still, a sense of optimism, and that, flower power was still alive
Well,
and
just
well and all
yeah,
that.
to the moon. It was just the idea.
Oh,
We're changing everything.
and yeah, right, exactly. We're changing everything, and everything is possible.
Everything is possible.
Now, speaking of to the moon, it's also sort of you're starting to, the Apollo program is really starting to ramp up, and oh yeah,
Yes, yes,
that's a
all
good
that stuff.
choice. Well, real quick, I would say that for me, it would also be in the 60s. I think I would like 1960. From my perspective, that watching the Kennedy phenomenon take shape would just be, to me, I've always wondered about that. I just what that was like to see how people around the country were responding to him. Remarkably charismatic figure. Um, I have to say though that it pales in comparison to your 67. But for me, 60 has always been a fascinating year,
Well,
real
I
kind of
think
transition year.
I personally feel like you get a real insight into that with Norman Mailer's Superman goes to the
Yes,
uh,
that's funny you mentioned that. Superman
super
goes to
or
the.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great
Because he really
article.
talks a lot about Kennedy and the conventions and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's just he was just such a remarkably different figure, and I think, I mean, much in the way that people talk about the Beatles and when they sort of, and how everything changed. I think the same kind of thing was for many Americans was Kennedy, which is again, then I think why it just was 63. November 63 was just so painful because they had invested so much emotionally into the whole Kennedy experience and Camelot and all that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, really, I think quite an interesting group of questions, and so
Yes.
as always, it's fun to hear from you all, and we look forward to doing this again. And so, Dave, you want to take us home?
Sure. If you enjoyed this episode, and we hope you did, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, you can do that right here. Generally, we usually have some sort of a playlist. We can put something together.
We'll do something. We'll do that. We're
Of
definitely
some excellent stuff, and you can watch that right here.
very good.
Uh,
Yeah.
or watch one of the previous episodes right up here.
Of which there are now quite a few.
And
And
now,
so, yes, go
if you
ahead.
have a comment or you have a suggested question for a future episode,
Yes,
right
absolutely.
there, just
Yes.
write it down and let us know.
No question about it. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll work up another episode as soon as we're able. So keep in mind that we tweet each day on X, so we post content there. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
Bye bye.